fabulous brother educators.
And Happy New Year, everybody.
Good morning, everyone.
Where were you on the night of July 31st, 19th? No.
Well, I can't guarantee there'll be all of us together, right? But maybe. Hello, brother sewing and crafting family. I'm Angela Wolf, and welcome to At Your Side Virtually. I'm a brand ambassador for Brother, and today we have the fabulous brother educator, Jennifer Gleich, and she is going to be cutting fabric with the ScanNCut. She said, I have something I want to do with the ScanNCut. Any ideas? And she gave me a bunch of ideas, and I love them all. But the one that you have all asked for so much that we are going to focus on is cutting fabric, because I always get that. You can only cut cards with the ScanNCut. Absolutely not. So if you've never been here before, say hi, say where you're from. And I see everybody rolling in already. So by the way, I don't know why, it's like the Weather Channel, but I have to tell you, it is pouring rain and crazy windy here in Southwest Michigan. And I have to say, I went to run an errand right before the live show. So in case it looks like I just got out of the shower, I literally just walked in from outside. So maybe when Jennifer comes in, I'll go blow dry my hair. I'm just kidding. Hey, Jennifer.
Good morning, Angela. How are you?
Good, good. Everyone, welcome Jennifer to the show. And I am so excited because we're going to be cutting fabric. So how have you been since we've seen you last?
I've been good. We weathered some power outages, but I've got the sewing room to keep me busy. So that's where you'll find me.
We were just talking about that. And you are located in?
Just outside of Portland, Oregon.
Oh gosh. And so you lost power for how many days? I think I'd go stir crazy.
10 days. I was without power for 10 days. I was stir crazy not being able to turn on any of my machines.
Oh my gosh.
You don't realize how much you really are addicted to your fabric and your sewing until you can't do it.
Until there's no power. You need one of those old ones where you could just put I always think of, oh gosh, what were those called? Oh,
a treadle machine.
Yes.
A treadle machine.
Yes.
Yeah, and actually, just before that, I had a girlfriend contact me and said she had found one in her grandmother's garage or something and wanted to know if I wanted it. And I was like, no, I don't really need it. And I'm like, oh man, I could have used that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I am so excited for today. So we are going to be cutting fabric on the ScanNCut. You know, Jennifer, this is one of the most common questions that whoever is on here, quite often May will be on here doing some really cool crafting projects with the ScanNCut. We've cut so many different things on here, cork, vinyl, all these things. And the one question everyone always says is, can you cut fabric? And it's like, of course you can, but we've never really shown it much. So I'm so excited for this.
Yes, I mean, I use my ScanNCut for everything. I've made cards and I do vinyl, and I love the heat transfer vinyl on bags or t-shirts or sweatshirts or anything. But I'm a quilter at heart, so my ScanNCut I use for my sewing all the time. So I have made a list of several different ways to cut fabric, and I thought I'd share because I know that is something that people always ask about. And the new ScanNCuts are amazing at cutting fabric.
I can't wait. So what's the first one?
Well, the first one is one of my favorite ways to cut things on the ScanNCut, and it shows that the ScanNCut is really different from any other cutting machines on the market because we have the built-in scanner. So you can actually fussy cut your fabric. You can fussy cut any kind of design that you have on your item. So if you're making stickers, you can fussy cut your stickers. You can fussy cut paper from scrapbooking, but you can do it with fabric too. And so I have some fabric, and I was going to show you how to do this. I have some Minnie Mouse fabric, and I was actually able to cut just the Minnie Mouse out of the fabric using my ScanNCut. There's nothing on this. There's no fusible or anything. It's just the fabric, and my ScanNCut allows me to scan the fabric. It will recognize the design on the fabric, and I can cut around it. So I wanted to show that as the first item.
So I see, I already have somebody asking, what is fussy cut?
Okay, so fussy cut. I'm sorry. I'm a quilter, so I use all of those quilting terms, UFOs, fussy cut. Fussy cut is when there is something on your fabric that you want to highlight. So you might have a block with a center, and you're going to just cut your square so that that specific part of your fabric is shown in your block. Or if you have a fabric like this Disney fabric that has a character on it, or a leaf or a flower or something, you can fussy cut just around it and use this for applique, or decorate a sweatshirt, or decorate, you know, table runners, whatever. So fussy cut is taking a specific area of fabric and using it for your project.
That's awesome. Okay, I can't wait. Take it away,
Okay.
Jennifer. Take it
All
away.
right. So I'm going to switch my camera to just give me just a minute. And I'm going to disclaimer everybody, I'm not a camera person, so don't get woozy. I only have one camera that I have to put for the ScanNCut and the mat. So I hope everyone took their nausea medicine.
I'll take you out till you're on there. We all know that the live shows, we all need just a little touch of Dramamine sometimes, but we'll make it work. So as soon as I see her camera pop in, I'll bring her back up here. So I see a few of you asking questions. So be sure to ask your questions during the show and everything, because at the end and when she takes breaks, I'll be sure to ask her those. So don't think I didn't see them. All right, here she is. Oh, I recognize that screen.
Okay, so that's the screen. Now I'm actually going to move the camera so you can see me place the mini on my fabric, or on my mat.
All right.
Again, not a camera person. So
oh, there we go.
I am using, actually, the one thing I wanted to make sure to mention was we have a new fabric mat, and it is extra sticky. So I love it for cutting fabric. You don't need to put any kind of fusible on your fabric when you use the extra sticky mat. So I have my piece of fabric here. Again, there's nothing on this fabric. The only thing that I've done is I've pre-treated my fabric. I've starched it. So you're going to use whatever starch you like. So we all have our favorites. And so I've starched this just so it's nice and flat. And I'm just going to place it on my mat anywhere. The great thing with the ScanNCut, as you know, is doesn't matter where you place it, because we're going to actually scan the mat into the machine, and it's going to recognize your fabric. So I've got it on there, and I am going to use my brayer and just make sure that my fabric is nice and stuck to my mat. And I'm going to load it, and I am going to move the camera again. So I don't know if, Angela, you want to pop
I'll pop
up.
you out until you're back in. As soon as I see you back over there, I'll spare you guys just some of it. I'll watch because I don't get seasick. I always you got to love the live shows, right? Hey, Jennifer, I think you're doing an awesome job. It doesn't matter anyways. We love it. Okay, she's back at the screen.
All right. So I'm going to load my mat. And I'm going to move this a little so you can see. I'm just over here on the right. I'm going to hit the load button. And my mat is loaded onto my machine. Now I'm going to go and I'm going to scan my mat. So I'm going to touch scan, and we have several options. And we're going to choose the first one here. We're going to direct cut. And direct cut means we are going to want the machine to scan, and we are going to cut directly what is on whatever material is loaded into our machine, whether that's felt, whether it's fabric, whether it's paper. We're going to directly cut on that material. So I'm going to hit direct cut. And it's asking me once it gets the image, where do I want to save it? And I'm going to save it to my machine. And then here on this screen, we can scan in black and white, or we can scan in color. I usually leave it on black and white, so I'm going to just hit start. And my machine is going to scan. And you can see that it's recognized the fabric. The scan is in color. From here, I'm going to hit OK. It looks good. I don't see any shadowing or anything that might distract from the image, so I'm going to touch OK. And then you can see all these little black bits. That's my mat. You have to forgive me. I do use my ScanNCut. I have cats. Stickiness tends to get a lot of fur, so I'm a real person. This is not paid advertisement, I guess. So forgive all of the little black marks. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually crop using the little arrows, and I'm going to crop just around one of the Mickeys. Can you see that on the screen?
Yeah, we can see that great.
Okay, so I'm just going to crop a Minnie here. And I'm going to hit preview. Now, the ScanNCut has detected the Minnie Mouse, and it has actually detected the outline around the Minnie Mouse. I don't know if you can see that at all on your screen.
Yeah, we can see it great.
But it has recognized the outline of the image. So it looks really good to me. I don't see anything else that it has picked up. I'm going to hit OK. Now on this screen, you can see the outline around Minnie, and I have the option. I can either cut directly on her around the edge, or I can actually do an offset or an outline distance. So maybe I want to have a little bit of red showing around Minnie. I can actually add an offset, and if you look at the screen, you can see that that outline is moving away from her. And I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to go back one because she's a little close to the edge there. And I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to hit OK one more time. Now on my screen, all I have is just the cut, just the outline that the ScanNCut has made from the image of Minnie Mouse. So I'm going to go to please select, and I'm going to go to cut. Now, I don't think we said at the beginning of the show, I'm using the ScanNCut SDX 230D, which is the Disney model. It is the one of the machines that has the auto blade. So I can certainly do a test cut if I would like, but the auto blade will take a measurement of the depth of my mat versus the depth of the material that I'm cutting, and it will calculate how deep it needs to cut. So I am going to let the machine do all the work for me. I am going to use, I don't know if you can see this, I'm going to use the tan auto blade that's meant for specifically just fabric. And it actually matches the tan that's on the new fabric mat. So you know when you're using that fabric mat, you want to use the tan blade as well. So I hit.
You know, Jennifer, that makes that so nice that they go together so you can know. And I did just real quick, that blade does come with the mat, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, with the machine, you get the blade comes with the machine.
Okay. Yeah, with the newer one. Now, I had a few people asking, can everything that you're showing here, can they do on their older ScanNCut? Yes, you just don't have, you might not have the fabric mat, but everything else she's showing, you should be able to do.
Yes, you can certainly cut fabric on the older models of the ScanNCut.
Yeah, so that answers
But
your
the
question.
the new fabric mat is specifically for the DX models.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to catch
Nope,
that.
that's okay. I'm not looking at the screen to see questions. I'm over here at the ScanNCut, so that's good.
I'm your eyes, and no, I'll be your ears, and you be the eyes.
Sounds good. So I have selected cut. Now, if you notice, I have some settings here that are in the machine. It's on auto cut, and I have a half cut. Half cut we're not going to use, but I just wanted to point out, I actually had a friend last week. She was cutting fabric and she called me and she said, my machine didn't cut all the way through my fabric. And I said, did you have your half cut on? And she did. And the half cut setting is if you're using vinyl, it tells the machine not to cut all the way through, so you don't cut through your carrier sheet. So always when you're cutting fabric, if you're using a DX model, make sure your half cut is turned off, so you do get a cut all the way through your fabric. So I'm looking at my settings. They all look good. I'm not going to do a test because I'm going to completely trust my auto blade, and I'm just going to hit start. And I want to make note that my speaker is right behind my ScanNCut. So the ScanNCut is very quiet when it's cutting.
Yeah, I was just going to say, okay, so if the speaker's right there, I'm going to have to say that that's a pretty quiet.
I mean, literally, it's right behind. I don't have a very big room. Okay, so it's finished cutting. And I am going to come back to the main screen. I'm going to change my camera over and I'm going to show you when I pull this off of the mat.
Okay, I'll take you out and you just give me thumbs up when you're ready. That is such a cool feature. I agree with so many of you. And Veronica, I was thinking the same thing. Like, whenever I see this, how does it even know what to cut? You're telling it, but it's very cool how this happens. So I think, you ready for me? There you
Ready.
are.
All right, so here's my mat with my fabric. And I am going to use my little spatula that comes with your ScanNCut. And I'm just going to try to do this so you can see it. I'm going to use the spatula to lift my outside fabric off first. There's my mini.
You know, leave your mat there for a second, because I know some people think that we always have like the most spotless mats, and what you were talking about is your mat's still working great, but that's a lot of the lines that you were picking up when you scanned it in, and it still worked great. So I think that's great for people to know that they don't have to have.
And you know, I looked for a new fabric mat in my drawer last night because I was a little embarrassed because my mat is used. I mean, I used my ScanNCut.
That's
and
good.
I thought, you know what? It's used. If they see the cat fur, if they see the cut lines, I use it all the time. So there's my Minnie Mouse. And again, I'll use my spatula just to pick her up. And she's all ready for whatever I'd like to do with her.
That is so cool. I love that. Everybody's saying this is so awesome. Do you guys have any questions for this part before she shows us more?
Yes, before I go on, I mean, that is one of the things that I like to demonstrate, just because our ScanNCut has that built-in scanner. So your possibilities are endless.
That's a good question. If you wanted to cut out, say, 3 or 4 of those minis, can you do them at the same time, or you have to pick one at a time?
I think you can do them at the same time. But what I would do is cut one and not move my fabric. And then it says, are you finished? And you can say no. And you can go back and crop another one and cut another one.
I think that's what I would do too, so you can piece things around. So you don't have to scan the whole mat again.
No, because it saves the image in there. You just go back a screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Lori wants to know what mats come. Each of the ScanNCuts are a little bit different. So the newer model that just came out includes that mat, but just call your brother dealer, check out what's in the box. And then there are other variations as well. So it'll tell you right on there what mats. Usually you get a standard mat, maybe a low tack mat, but just check your ScanNCut model that you're looking at because there are various models.
Yes, and the ScanNCut, the newer ScanNCut 230 SDX 230DX comes with all three mats. You get the low tack, the standard, and the fabric mat.
That's awesome. I always laugh whenever I try to say that name like 3 times. I did some videos for that, and I was like, "Who came up with this name? Have you tried saying this fast like 3 times?"
Exactly. Yes.
Diana, no, she did not put anything
No.
behind. There's like 3 questions about what you put on the fabric. Nothing.
Okay. So this is just fabric, and all I've done is starched it. So whatever your favorite starch is, it's got a real good press and a good starch to it. That's it. So that if I were to use this on a quilt or a pillow or something, once it washes, it'll still be real soft. So there's no fusible on it.
That's awesome.
And that's the key when you're using the fabric mat, is it's just fabric. You don't want to put a fusible or, some people cut their fabric using wax paper. You don't want anything else on the fabric mat, just fabric.
Right. Especially not, and this is not a Brother brand, but a lot of people put like a heat and bond or something on the back so they can use it for applique. So that's not the place to use this.
That is not the place to use it.
Either, just full disclosure, because but at the same time, I know a lot of you use that. And so don't use the fabric mat for that, or you might be stuck for a while. Your fabric will be stuck.
Right.
All right. What is next on the agenda?
Okay. So the next thing that's really, really exciting about the ScanNCut is it will read your PES and PHX embroidery files. So if you have a embroidery file that has an applique to it, you can plug your USB right into your ScanNCut, and it will bring up the embroidery file, but it will recognize the applique shapes. So I wanted to show that.
My favorite features. A lot of people, and some of you have asked, does connect to your sewing machine? No, it doesn't connect, but you can use them both together in so many different ways. So I can't wait for you to show this.
So I did this little applique pillow.
Oh, that's cute. Let me bring you up by yourself here. There you go. Oh my gosh, is that adorable? It's my mother's birthday today. I should give her something like that.
So this is built into your luminaire. So this is a built-in design. And so what I did was I went into my my Brother luminaire, and I saved this design to my USB drive, and I have my USB drive plugged into my ScanNCut. So I wanted to show you how to cut the fabric that you need for to make this.
Very nice. Okay.
Okay. So let me move Minnie Mouse out of the way here.
I love your cabinets in the back with fabric. That's always my favorite part when you're on. It's so colorful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. They're getting a little bit, I've been in here 10 days without no sewing. I've been in here doing a lot, so they're a little bit disheveled because I've been getting my use out of them. Okay, so I am going to do the same thing. I have my fabric prep behind me. So again, when I'm doing something like this, a lot of times I won't use a fusible. So again, these pieces of fabric are just starched and pressed. So I'm not going to show you putting them on the mat because I think we can figure that out.
It's like go back and replay.
I have to see that done once, right? So I'm going to put these on the mat, and I'm going to cut both pieces at the same time. That's the great thing. Again, I'm going to scan, and I can place my pieces where I want them. So I'm just going to put both pieces on the mat.
Oh, thanks, Gail. I'll pass the word.
What's that?
Happy birthday to my mom.
Yes, happy birthday to your mom. And I'm going to load my mat. And now I'm going to switch cameras so you can see what I'm doing.
All right, I'll just take you out for a sec. So I think that is such a cute pillow. I see all the comments. Jennifer, you probably didn't see these, but they were popping up. So cute, so cute. There's always like a few second delay. I know. I love this project. And the cool part is that you can cut most of it on the ScanNCut, which is fantastic.
I'm going to change my camera.
Okay. There she is. You're back.
All right. So as I said, I opened the design on my Luminaire and I just hit memory and I saved it to my USB drive. Now my USB drive is plugged right into the ScanNCut. Again, I didn't have to do anything because my ScanNCut will read that embroidery file. So I'm going to go to retrieve data and I'm going to select my USB. Now, because I saved this from my machine, I know that my machine automatically puts things into something called a B pocket. If you had another applique file, it may not be in a pocket, it might just pop up. But I know I'm going to look for it in my B pocket. There is my PHX file from my Luminaire. I'm going to select that. There's my birthday cake. And I know that this has applique pieces in it. If it was not a embroidery file that had applique and you wanted to choose something, a part of the design to make applique, you would choose the flower. But because I know this has applique, this is my shield or my applique stamped key. If I hit that, and by the way, that's the same icon that's on my sewing machine. So all of our brother icons work together. So what your icon is on your machine is going to be on the ScanNCut. So you always know which icons to choose. So there's my two pieces. I've got the cake stand and I have the cake. So I'm going to select my cake stand and I'm going to hit OK. And I'm not going to add an offset or anything in this screen that's telling you what the size is, which is helpful. It allowed me to just cut my piece of fabric the size that I needed. I'm only going to make one cake, so I only needed to cut one. I'm going to hit set. And then I'm going to go to add because I want to cut them both at the same time. So I'm going to choose add. I'm going to select my cake and hit OK. Again, I'm going to leave it the size it is. Cut one. I'm going to hit set. Now, there's one more trick that I have when I'm doing applique, especially for embroidery, is I enlarge my applique piece just a little bit so that when I lay it down on my piece that I'm working on and I do that tack down stitch, I make sure to catch the edge of my fabric. So the way I do that is I'm going to go into each piece. First, I'm going to select one and move it just a little bit. I'm going to go into each piece. I'm going to go to edit. And then I'm going to go to object edit. And this up in the left, that's your size button. So I'm going to hit size. Now, don't laugh at me. I don't know what percentage this is. We do have a percentage. You can, if you go to percentage, you can increase by a certain percentage. I don't know what percentage I use. I just use the plus and minus for this. And I do 6 beeps. So I don't know how many, how many millimeters that is.
That's kind of funny that you say that though, because everybody does it a little differently. So just 6 plus beep, beep, beep.
Right. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and hit OK. Then I'm going to select my cake. I'm going to go back into size and I'm going to do the same thing. 6 and hit OK. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to hit OK again. And now I'm going to scan my mat. I'm going to hit start.
So both pieces are ready to cut. This is the best part. So earlier when you were asking, can she cut more than one at a time? Of course she can. But this way, wait till you see this if you haven't seen this, where you can have two pieces of fabric show up on the screen. This is so cool.
So there's my fabrics. Now, I don't know about you. It's a little bit difficult for me to see the outlines, especially on the polka dot fabric. So I have this little wrench tool here. And I can actually make my background a little lighter. If I select that, I hit OK. I can still see my fabric, but it's a lot easier to see my shapes. So I'm going to move my cake stand down onto my yellow fabric. I'm going to move my cake onto the polka dots. And I'm actually going to go into edit. And this is my move button. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit so that I can make sure that I don't get too close to the edge of my fabric. And then I'm just on the screen, I'm just going to select my cake stand. And these arrows here actually move your image of your mat. These arrows on the top move your actual, whatever it is that the item that you're cutting. So I'm just going to make sure that that's within my fabric. I'm going to hit OK. And hit OK. And hit OK. And hit OK. So we don't see our fabric on this screen, but we know that we've positioned our pieces where the fabric is on the mat. Again, I'm going to hit please select. I'm going to hit cut. And again, I'm going to trust my auto blade that I don't need to do any adjustments or test cuts. And I'm just going to hit start.
And that's it. And so, by the way, when she took the fabric and she made it a little bit lighter, it was harder to see on the screen. So you can go back and check that. But what she did is she moved each piece over the fabric, directly over each piece of fabric. I love, though, how you can make that lighter because it is tricky sometimes to see your design, especially if you have a printed dark fabric on there.
Yes, yes.
I agree, Stacy. This is awesome.
Again, do you notice that you probably can't hear much on the speaker?
No, you're right there. Heidi says she counts beeps too.
Okay, so now on this screen, if I could have cut just the cake stand and then gone select the next part and then positioned my cake, but I did them both at the same time. But if you wanted to do one at a time, say maybe I was cutting my cake out of, I don't know, a piece of like a crafting felt or something, you might want to go back. You wouldn't, because it only takes one measurement and assumes that both things that you're cutting are the same measurement. So if I'm going to use felt for my cake, I might want to go back and add it so that it takes the measurement of the felt so it knows how deep to cut. But I'm finished. I've cut both my pieces. I'm going to hit finish. And now I'm going to unload my mat. And then I will show you on my other camera. Switch cameras again.
Sounds good. I'll bring her back up when she switches. So I absolutely agree. I can see some of you asking. So Ibby, yes, you can cut seam. You can add seam allowances to these as well. There's another feature on there for that. But yes, absolutely. You're not incorrect at all. I just, oh, and was it Tammy that said she's picking up her ScanNCut today, or Tammy that has and uses her ScanNCut? I forgot the name. I was scrolling through here. Definitely. So Sharon, if you're going to use heat and bond on the back, then use a regular mat. There's no sense in even using the fabric mat. I know you said flip it over. Why? the whole purpose of this mat was if you had a thin piece of fabric or fabric that you didn't want to put anything on, use it for that. So just skip the fabric mat altogether if you're going to do that. And she's back.
I'm
Hey.
back. All right. So again, I'm going to take these off of the mat. I'm going to start with I always start with the excess fabric.
I always find that even the excess fabric looks cool on the outside. I always find something for it too.
So here's my cake stand. And here's my cake.
Oh, I love that.
And so I've already started stitching another one. So I've got the placement stitch stitched for my cake. And what I like to do, again, as I said, I don't use a lot of fusible on something that may be used a lot. I don't want it to seem real hard with the fusible. So what I do is I've got my little cake stand and I have my favorite. I go through these a lot. This is just a glue stick, a fabric glue stick that disappears when it dries. And I just take that and put it on the back of my piece, position it.
I think these glue sticks are, that has been one thing over the since we started doing live shows that I have added to my sewing studio that's a must-have. I never even thought about fabric glue sticks.
And so I've got it just tacked into place. Again, it's water-soluble glue. It's going to disappear, so I didn't have to worry it's going to show through as purple or anything. And then I'm ready to proceed with my embroidery on my machine.
Wow, this is awesome.
It's so much easier than putting your fabric down, doing your tack down stitch, and then trimming all the way around. It makes it so fast.
That's awesome. I agree. Casey says you're an awesome teacher. I'm like, yes, you are.
Thank you. So that was the second thing, was the PES, PHX readability on the ScanNCut. Makes life so much easier for your embroidery.
I love that. Absolutely. All right. I think you have more ways to cut fabric.
I do have more ways to cut fabric. So as a quilter, we all started somewhere. I'm not always great with my cutting. I'm not always great with my straight seams, and my ScanNCut will help me with both of that. So your ScanNCut has, I'm trying to remember all of the built-ins, but we have built-in quilt block designs right in the ScanNCut. So I have back here, I've done, this is just a simple built-in quilt block. We've all probably seen this block before, but I cut all my pieces on my ScanNCut.
Okay, so I have to just say, Jennifer, a while ago, I was trying to do a denim skirt with those quilt blocks, and I cut them myself. And you are so right. No matter how hard I tried, they were not. I should have just thrown it at the ScanNCut. That would have been so much easier.
Yes. So I cut this, and I actually, can I say that I cut this and put this together last night at 10 o'clock.
Really?
The ScanNCut cuts super fast, completely accurate. You don't, I mean, your cutting is perfect. So I wanted to show.
Your Pacific time. So that wasn't that long ago.
That wasn't that long ago. No, we're talking about 12 hours ago.
Oh my gosh.
But it went together so fast because I was able to pre-cut all of my pieces. So I am going to use the fabric mat again and just show you in the ScanNCut the blocks and some of the tricks with the quilt blocks that are in there.
Wonderful. I'm very excited for this.
Okay. So.
Hey, just while you're doing that, I'm just going to ask you a question while you're swapping things around.
Yes.
So would you, because that's an interesting one. Elizabeth wants to know, since you glued that last piece down, would you still use the tack down, like when it runs through the sewing machine? I usually do, just for safety to have everything.
I do. Because I don't want, if it goes to the next step, I don't want my embroidery foot to get caught underneath the edge.
Yeah.
So I do the tack down just for safety. That way I don't have to worry about caging my embroidery foot, or I've spent all that time to get it all hooped and you know, I just go with the tack down stitch.
Just go. That was a great question though, Elizabeth, because
less than a minute, just go with it. Okay, so I've got my fabrics cut. Now I'm going to put these down on the fabric mat, but I'm going to put these right side down because I believe you had someone ask about seam allowances. And I'm going to show you seam allowance.
Oh, they're going to be so excited, like you read their mind.
Yeah, it's on my list. It's on my list here. So I'm going to put the pink fabric down. And load it into the ScanNCut. Well, first I'm going to need to get my marker.
Hey, by the way, do you ever have any issues with your glue gumming up your needle at all after you use that for appliques?
No, because I don't put it really towards the, I put it
in the middle,
towards the center, like it's in the middle. It's not on the
I was thinking
it's not on the edge where the satin stitch and all that is going to go.
Yeah,
but it dries pretty quickly, so it's not gummy. So I think it would still be okay. I think even in so if you look on the pillow, like the icing here. Sorry, I have a hard time going mirror image. I think I'm pointing over here when I'm but the icing, I would have had glue underneath here, but by the time it got to that part, I think the glue was dry. So I didn't have any issue at all.
Yeah. That makes sense. Do you have any amount when you're prepping this fabric, when you say you're adding starch to it? Arnell asked this and a couple of other of the viewers asked, do you have a specific, I mean, because you kind of sound like you're putting it into a cup, but do you spray it once? Do you give it like 2 sprays? Is there any like specific amount that you feel that is best on the fabric?
I hate to be so like, it just depends on what starch you're using. Yeah. So we don't endorse any starch. So mine is a spray and I get it really wet and then I iron it. So it's really kind of like almost like a piece of cardstock.
Yeah.
But when it washes, you would never know. So
it disappears.
It disappears. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to switch cameras again.
All right. I'll take you out. And when I see that you're steady. Oh, I missed what you said, Sharon. What was the auto? Oh, yeah. I see your autocorrect. Oh, that's so funny. We've had way worse autocorrects on here, though, just for the record. Do you have to starch the fabric to cut for quilt pieces? So I would say yes, because she's going to be using the fabric mat. So you need it to, if it's too frail, it doesn't cut right. So, and the starch is easy to do. I think I see her back up here. So we just bring.
Yeah, I do starch. You want your fabric nice and flat on your mat so that your blade doesn't catch on any kind of little bubble or anything. And the starch really does help.
Yeah. Hey, Carmen, she's not using a sewing machine. She's using the ScanNCut, just FYI.
Yeah, it's just a cutting machine. Actually, I shouldn't say it's a cutting machine because it can, I'm going to show you that it can draw too. So I've got my fabric loaded with my mat loaded with my fabric on it, right side down. And I'm going to go into patterns. And we have all of these built-in patterns. And of course, the ScanNCut DX 230D and 230DX have the built-in Disney designs for those of us that just can't get enough Disney. But I'm going to scroll down to the quilt blocks here. So we have quilt block collections. Now, it's not just these 7. When I go into each one, there are multiple quilt blocks. So I'm going to go find the quilt block that I did. And it was this one. And I want to show you some cool things. Again, if I wanted to increase or decrease the size, it shows that it's an 8-inch finished block. If I wanted to increase or decrease, I could do it by percentage. So say you're working on a quilt and you want to make it 150% bigger. You could change it to 150 and the ScanNCut will change it, auto-calculate all of your pieces for you. Or you can say, okay, I did an 8-inch block, but maybe I want to do a 10-inch block or 9-inch block. I can change this to 9. And I can hit OK. And my next screen, it shows me that there are 3 different pieces that make up this block, A, B, and C. So if you remember, my block had the floral as where the yellow is. So I'm going to cut B, which is the fabric I put down. And when I hit B, it highlights what parts of the block are B, and I hit OK. And it tells me that those blocks or those squares are 2 3/4 of an inch by 2 3/4 of an inch, and that I need 4 of them to make 1 block. Now, somebody asked if you can cut more than 1 of something. If I had a big enough piece of fabric, if maybe I had a 12-inch square of fabric and I wanted to do 4 blocks, I could say, okay, I know that I need 16 of these for 4 blocks. I can ask my machine to cut all 16 at the same time. But I'm just going to do the 4, and I'm going to hit set. And it puts them up here on the screen. I don't know, you can, I guess it does show that pretty well on my camera. And again, I'm going to scan my fabric just so I can place these. These are individual. They're not linked together. I'm going to scan my fabric.
Here we go. It's so quiet. It's funny. I'm watching so closely. I'm like, it's quiet. She's still there, right?
I'm still here. I'm still here. Okay. Now, you can barely see my fabric. I might actually go in, because I'm working with the back of the fabric. I might go turn my background darker.
I like it darker because we can see it better too.
Yeah. So I'm going to take these and I'm going to move these, all 4 pieces, onto my fabric.
I love that. I see a bunch of you asking what kind of glue she's using. It's not a Brother product, but I'll tell you what. When I'm finished with the show, because I always add all these videos onto my blog at angelawolf.com, I'll find out and I'll get a link for you, okay? Because it's not a Brother product, so no worries on that.
Okay, so I've gone in to edit, and I've gone into magnify. I'm going to magnify this up. And again, these arrows here move my mat, my picture of my mat. These actually move whatever it is that, you know, my cut file is. So I'm going to move this down so I can see. And what I want, I'm just trying to make sure that my pieces fit on my piece of fabric. Oops. And if you hold the button down, it moves really fast. Sometimes too fast for me to catch up.
While you're doing that, this has come up a few times. Why are you cutting with the fabric face down, just out of curiosity?
Well, I believe somebody asked about seam allowances. Mm-hmm. And so I am going to show you that you can actually draw your seam allowance on your fabric before you cut.
Okay, that's going to be fabulous. I thought that's what you're going to do, but I wasn't sure. So when everybody kept asking, why are you sit upside down? Cat's out of the bag.
Cat's out of the bag. It is a great feature for, I'd like to say for beginning quilters, but you know what? If you're doing, for advanced quilters as well, I mean, if you're doing triangle piecing, you can put the seam allowances, and, you know, for all those Y seams or any kind of point seams that you need to stop at a certain place, you can have that all pre-drawn on your fabric. And it's a perfect position. There's no questions because the ScanNCut has done it for you. So I've got all 4 of my pieces where I want them. And I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to hit OK. Again, my fabric disappears when I get to this screen. But when I hit please select this time, I'm going to go to draw. And I'm going to remove my blade. I'm just going to pop it out. And your ScanNCut comes with a little pen holder. And you get a set of markers as well as a set of what quilters would recognize as fabric markers. There's a purple one and a blue one. One is air soluble and one is water soluble. I always get them mixed up. Ask me how I know, because sometimes I'll use the wrong one and then go back and there's no marks. But you're going to take the little lid off of your pen, and this just pops open. I don't know if you can see me doing this.
Yeah, we can see that.
Slides right in. And then I think Angela said this before, you can put your pen top up there so you don't lose it. And this just gets put into your ScanNCut just like your blade. So it's going to go into where the blade goes.
And for those of you that have no idea about these pens, the blue one is the wash away and the purple is the air. It disappears in the air after usually 24 hours or less, actually. And I'm with you, by the way, because I did that on an alteration years ago on a customer's dress. I had marked all of their alterations with the purple one, and then I got sidetracked, and then I went back 2 days later to do the alterations, and all of the markings were gone. So
oh, that had to be, oh my goodness. I feel you, because I've done that.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, it was only my project, not I wasn't working for someone. So now I've hit draw, and I put my pen in, and I'm just going to hit draw. Well, I guess I already hit draw. Now I have to start. Sorry. Got a little distracted. I'm going to hit start. I'm not going to test. I don't need to test draw. Now, it says, this is where my machine is smarter than me. There's a lever on the side of the DX machines that raises the scanning bar. And for your pen, it doesn't need to be as low. So it's telling me to pop my scanning bar up so that the pen doesn't really jam into the mat. So I'm going to just move my scanning bar up. Your machine's not broken if you get this message. A lot of people get this message and they freak out. Just know that the machine, be okay with the fact your machine is smarter than you are.
I think that's one of the best parts of the ScanNCut too, is that if you're doing something wrong, it'll tell you.
It'll tell you. And it's not that you're doing something wrong. It's just saying, hey, you missed a step.
Mm-hmm.
So I've lifted my scanner lever and I'm gonna hit OK. And I'm gonna hit start again. And it is going to draw my seam allowance for me.
Oh, I love that.
Okay,
Oh,
it's drawn.
good. Lisa, that's a great thing. Think of blue for water. There you go.
Yes, that's a good tip. Why didn't I think of that? Okay, I'm gonna hit finish. I'm gonna remove my pen and I am going to put the cap back on it.
Yep, Phyllis, that's what she was doing. She was drawing all the seam allowances on the blocks.
So now I'm going to go back, and again, I'm using my fabric mat. So I'm going to use my fabric blade, which is the tan top. I'm putting that back in. Now I'm going to go to please select. I'm going to go to cut, and I'm going to hit start.
Actually, I think I misspoke. Phyllis, she was drawing in the seam lines where you're going to sew.
Yes. Not the seam allowance, the actual sewing lines.
Yeah. Now it's cutting on the seam allowance lines. And it is adding, I saw somebody asking, yeah, it's adding a 1/4 inch seam allowance right now.
Oh, yes. And I'll go back before I remove the mat, I'll go back in and show you. You can actually choose which seam allowance you want. I have it set as a 1/4 inch. Okay. Are you there?
Yeah, we're here.
Okay. You're just so quiet.
I know, because we're just watching in amazement. Hey, Pearl, by the way, for your local brother dealer, you said yours is 2.5 hours away. Just give them a phone call because some of these things can be shipped to you too. You don't have to go there.
Okay, so I'm going to hit finish. And I'm actually, while I'm here, before I switch cameras, I'll just show you where that is for your seam allowance. So I'm just going to go back. And if I go to edit, object edit, right here, this button is your seam allowance. I have it on, and I can actually choose, you know, some people actually cut their clothing patterns or their other sewing patterns on their ScanNCut, and they need a 5/8 inch. So you can set your seam allowance to whatever you like. I'm a quilter, so I use the 1/4 inch. But it's not just 1/4 inch that you have available. So I'm going to unload my mat.
I love that as it's cutting. Okay, so we got blue for water, and then Mary Ann says, "Oh wait, what about purple rain?" Then we'll get so confused. So forget it. Purple is air dry, blue is wash away. We got to just go back to that.
Okay, so I'm going to pull these up, and I have to tell you the purple did not show up very well, but I'm going to hold it close.
Okay, let me bring you up.
On the pink fabric. But
yeah,
you can see
just barely.
Just barely. I mean, the blue might have been better. But now I've got my pieces. Again, they are perfectly cut to whatever size you need. And it's got my sewing line there for me.
So the drawing line, you guys, the drawing line is where you're going to be sewing. So if you had a big seam allowance on there, then the drawing line would be, the drawing line is where you're sewing, no matter what. That's how you're going to make your quilt block. That's where the drawing line that she just did. The seam allowance, you can change to be whatever you want it to be. That's what she was showing you on there.
Right.
Fantastic.
So I use that all the time. And actually, when I was doing that last night, I thought I have a new pattern that I want to do, and it calls for hundreds of little squares, like 1 inch squares. And I thought, you know what? Rather than just why didn't it dawn on me to just put a piece of fabric down and tell my ScanNCut I need a 1 inch finished square, have it add my seam allowance, and have it cut all 30 of them instead of, using my rotary cutter. So it's a great tool. You don't have to just use the built-ins. You can cut your squares or your triangles. You don't have to use the built-in quilt blocks because you have built-in shapes as well.
I think that's awesome. Casey said, okay, now maybe I can sew straight following your line.
Right.
That's a great idea. I love this. So do you guys have any more questions? Because this has been a fabulous tutorial. How are we doing? We are, oh gosh, that was the fastest hour of my life. That was,
I was going to say there was one more thing I wanted to show, but we can do it next time.
That sounds good. I think next time, by then, oh, can you give us a hint what you're going to show next time?
Well, I showed you built-in, reading the PES files. So you can read your embroidery files. I showed you the built-in quilt blocks, but what if you have a pattern or something that you actually want to turn into an applique?
Ooh.
I was going to show you how to scan it in and make it an applique of your own.
That's going to be very cool. So you are just going to have to wait patiently for the next fabric tutorial. That was a great tutorial. All three of those, because number one, I think the first one, and for those of you that rolled in later, be sure to go back and watch the beginning when she cut out the Minnie Mouse. So to do that, if you're watching on Brother YouTube, be sure to subscribe to the channel because you'll never miss a live show. And you can go back and watch. You could pretty much binge watch for days. And if you're on Facebook, like and follow the page, and you'll also be reminded of the live shows. But you can go back to either page and go into the video section and rewatch this. But that cutting out those little designs, I think it's so cool. Because when I remember, I think it was Cindy Hogan when she first did it with a little dog that was on some fabric. And I thought, how did you cut that itsy bitsy little thing on the ScanNCut? And there you go.
It's amazing. The scanner is just, it just adds so much more creativity to your sewing or your crafting, whatever you're doing.
Absolutely. Dee, I agree. You know, the best part of watching the replays is you can stop and go and rewind and then have your ScanNCut next to this. I know a lot of you watching this put it on your TV. Some of you have it on your tablets and you can leave it right next to each other for a tutorial. This just an awesome, awesome tutorial, Jennifer. Everybody's saying thank you.
Thank you. I do love my ScanNCut. Everyone needs one for their sewing room.
And I love the fact that you use it because now we know for sure.
I do. Like I said, I was embarrassed of my mat and I thought, nope, it's just used.
That's awesome. So I will go back. If you guys have other questions when Jennifer comes on next time, be sure to bring them with you. And I cannot wait for next time. So now hopefully the weather stays okay where you are. Keep your power on. But I did learn something about Jennifer today that is so cool. Can I share about what your husband has in the basement? Because I'm so jealous. I was just thinking
yes.
something like
course.
this.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So we lost our power for 10 days. And one of the things that we really had to make sure was taken care of was my hobby is this lovely wall of fabric and quilting. And my husband's hobby is saltwater fish. So we have a 125-gallon saltwater reef tank downstairs in our living room. And when the power went out, if you know anything about saltwater fish, they have to be at a certain temperature. Otherwise, they will freeze. So we had to go out. You know, it's one thing to be without power for a day, but 10 days was too much. So after day number 2, we had to go out and get a generator and plug in all of the pumps and the heater and everything. And thankfully everything survived. But yes, that is his hobby. So he doesn't say anything about this. And I don't say anything about the expensive corals and fishes that we have downstairs. I
think that I'm going to have to add that too. But I never thought about that though. That's scary. Power goes out. You never think about that. Like you're going to lose your entire aquarium that would be awful. I'm glad that it worked out okay. And I'm glad that you're all good. And you're probably really proficient at knitting and crocheting now if you're in the dark for 10 days.
I am, yes. I had to have something to keep me busy.
Oh gosh, that's awesome. Everybody's saying, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. Yeah, I can't either. For a couple of hours and I'm panicked. So it just makes us appreciate what we have, right? But just
very appreciative.
Before we go, yes. Can spray starch, any kind of spray starch work?
Yes.
And
whatever you like.
I put brother's blog below, and I also put my website because that's the one that by the end of the week I'll have this week's videos up, and I'll just check with Jennifer what glue stick she uses, and I'll throw it in there because it's not a brother product, okay? And anything else that maybe can help, and you can leave questions then on the blog, and if there's something that I can't answer, I'll go back to Jennifer.
I'll make sure to get answers for people.
Yeah. Oh, Paula was just saying, I wonder what you would do for that. A generator that's a great idea, by the way. A generator for your fish tank. I wouldn't have even thought of that.
Yes. So now we have a very large generator that, my husband's on the road. Well, he's not on the road, but he's a delivery driver. So he's gone at night. So guess who got to fill the generator in the middle of the night with gasoline over and over again?
Oh my gosh. Good for you.
But you do what you have to do. We got through it. Everyone's safe. The fish are all alive. So.
And you are too, which is fabulous. So
yes.
Jennifer, now wait till you're on next time. I'm actually going to go play with those quilt blocks because when I did that first design, I cut them all myself. They weren't perfectly straight. I have some fabric here. I've got a can of starch. I think I'm just going to try it because number one, they make such beautiful table settings. And I'm big into little dinners with my husband and everything. Maybe there'll be a party one eventually when we can have people over, which we can now. We're all so busy. But I love how easy that was. And if you did that in a couple of, well, not long at all.
Yeah, I literally within a half an hour, I had it cut and stitched.
Yeah. And then you grab that special foot that's in the machine for the 1/4 inch foot. And then you, even if you decide not to draw your stitches on, you can sew away. So I think that's great. I'm loving it. So do you have that pillow by you one last time just to hold that up?
I do. I
love this. I just love this.
So it's built into the luminaire, and then I added the background, one of the background fills from the luminaire. And then just made just a, envelope style little pillow.
So cute. I love it. All right.
Easy. The longest part was the stitching, but.
Yeah, but that you can just watch and have a cup of coffee.
Yep, exactly.
So everyone, brother sewing and crafting family, thank you. This has been a fabulous week. So just so you know the schedule, Saturday. Well, for those that want to know a little more about embroidery, Cindy Hogan and I have a class tomorrow that we'd love to have you join. At noon, we are discussing embroidery on small letters. Saturday, another episode of It's So Easy. And then next week, we're doing it all over again. So I'll see you then. And Jennifer, I cannot wait till you're back on. It's so great to see you.
Me either. It's so much fun. I love showing off the ScanNCut. Fabulous.
All right. By the way, do you have any classes coming up that you want to tell me? I didn't even ask. Do you have anything coming up?
I don't. So get me on your schedule because I'd be more than happy to come back.
I can't wait. Sounds wonderful. All right, everyone.
All right.
Have a wonderful day and
bye.
Stay dry if you're
stay
here.
Dry.
All right. See you.